The Galactic Council Chamber was one of the largest structures ever built in space. It floated at the center of a neutral system, a place chosen long ago so no single species could claim ownership. The chamber itself was shaped like a colossal ring, with seats arranged in endless circles that spiraled upward toward the ceiling. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the seats, each wearing the formal robes, scales, or armor that marked their culture. The air shimmered faintly with translation fields, so every word spoken could be understood by all. The mood in the chamber was heavy. For the first time in centuries, the council had gathered not for trade or law, but for judgment, and the one standing accused was Earth. Humanity's representatives, 3 figures in plain dark suits, stood at the center of the chamber. They were small compared to some of the towering alien delegates. Some aliens had bodies of liquid, others were covered in crystalline armor, and still others stretched high on insect-like limbs. Yet the humans stood calmly, their faces showing no fear. They waited in silence as the votes were tallied. At the far end of the chamber, the presiding chancellor raised a long hand with silver fingers. "The decision has been reached," the chancellor's voice echoed, calm but final. "By the will of the council, the species known as humanity is found unfit for membership. By overwhelming majority, Earth is hereby exiled from the galactic community." A wave of reaction moved through the chamber. Some delegates nodded in relief. Others whispered among themselves. A few even clapped their claws or appendages together in satisfaction. They had long feared humanity's unpredictable ways, their endless ambition, and their strange refusal to follow galactic traditions. The chancellor continued. "Effective immediately, all trade rights with Earth are revoked. Human ships are forbidden from using council gates. Their communications will be blocked from official channels. They are to return to their world and remain there, isolated, until such a time the council deems them safe." The words rang like a sentence, a final door closing. The first human delegate, a tall woman with short black hair, nodded once. "We hear your decision," she said simply. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, and it carried easily through the chamber. "We will inform our people. No anger, no pleas, no argument." The second delegate, an older man with gray streaks in his beard, looked around the chamber slowly. His eyes met those of the alien leaders one by one. Some looked away, others held his gaze with open distrust. At last he spoke, his words even quieter. "We understand." The third human, younger than the others, said nothing at all. He only placed his hands behind his back and stood with a stillness that seemed deliberate, almost practiced. The 3 humans turned as one, walked toward the exit, and left the chamber without another word. Silence followed them out. The council members began to talk at once, voices rising in a storm of different languages. Some were satisfied. "At last," hissed a scaled creature from the planet Voros. "The dangerous ones are contained." A crystalline delegate sparkled brightly as it clicked. "Yes, now the galaxy can rest. They were spreading too far, too fast." A long-limbed insectoid tapped its claws against the railing. "They never respected our rules. Their exile was inevitable." But in the far corner, a few whispered with unease. A waterborne species rippled nervously inside its containment shell. "They did not protest," it said softly. "Why did they not argue?" A furred delegate twitched its ears. "Yes. Strange. Humans are loud when they disagree, but today, silence." The chancellor dismissed their concerns. "They are broken by judgment. Their silence is nothing more than acceptance. Earth will return to its isolation as it once was. They will fade into irrelevance." And so the council turned to other matters, already forgetting the quiet figures who had left the chamber. Far away, aboard their shuttle, the 3 human delegates sat in silence as the stars shifted outside the windows. For a long time, none spoke. At last the older man exhaled and broke the stillness. "Well," he said, his voice low. "That was expected." The younger one gave a short, humorless laugh. "Expected, yes. But still," hearing them say it out loud, he shook his head. "Exile, as if we are children being sent to our room." The woman leaned forward, her eyes steady. Do not waste thought on their words. The vote changes nothing. Her voice was calm, almost cold. We were ready for this before we even arrived. The older man nodded. Indeed. They think we will crawl back to Earth and hide, but they do not understand us. His lips curved into the faintest smile. They never did. Back on Earth, the news spread within hours. The Galactic Council had voted. Humanity was exiled. The official statement was broadcast in every city, translated into every language. For a moment, there was shock. Some ordinary citizens felt fear. What would exile mean? No trade, no support, no access to the wider galaxy. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, a wave of determination rose. In the cities, workers tightened their hands on tools and said, "Then we build our own." In the universities, students leaned closer to their terminals and said, "Then we discover for ourselves." In the military yards, engineers looked up from their ship hulls and said, "Then we finish faster." Exile did not break them. It lit a fire. The Council believed Earth was weak without the galaxy. But the truth was different. For decades, humanity had learned under strict rules. The Council had restricted what worlds they could colonize, what technology they could develop, even what weapons they could build. Humans had obeyed, reluctantly, but they had obeyed. Now those rules were gone. In shipyards orbiting Mars, construction began at a furious pace. Old designs were pulled from archives, upgraded, and launched without delay. In the asteroid belts, mining stations doubled their output, no longer needing Council approval. On the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, research stations expanded their labs, testing theories once forbidden. And across Earth itself, a message spread quietly but firmly. We are not waiting to be told twice. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's vast archives, reports began to gather dust. Alien observers noted strange movements near human space. Cargo ships that should have been idle were vanishing into the dark. Massive construction was seen around Luna. Colonies once thought weak were suddenly expanding, sending out signals of growth. But the Council dismissed these reports as exaggerations. They cannot survive alone, one alien said. Their spirit will break. The truth was the opposite. Humanity was not broken. They were preparing. The 3 human delegates returned home, not as shamed exiles, but as messengers. They reported to their leaders, to their engineers, to their people. They said only one thing, again and again. The Council has exiled us. Good. That means we are free. And so Part 1 closed not with Earth's defeat, but with the first sparks of a new beginning. The galaxy thought the story was over. But for humanity, the story was just beginning. The sun rose over Earth's cities, but the world no longer looked the same. News of the exile had already spread to every home, every street, and every workplace. People were talking in cafes, on trains, in factories, and on farms. The Council thought humanity would feel fear, but instead there was a strange excitement, a restless energy in the air. In New York, screens flashed the Council's declaration again and again. Crowds stopped to watch the clip of the Chancellor's silver fingers as the sentence was read, "Earth is hereby exiled, all trade revoked, all contact forbidden." Some people frowned, others laughed. Many simply shook their heads. But no one begged for the Council to change its mind. At a shipyard in orbit above Mars, workers floated in zero gravity, welding giant plates of metal together. Sparks burst like small stars against the dark of space. When the announcement reached them, they did not stop. They tightened their tools, sealed another hull, and pushed forward faster than before. One worker, his face streaked with sweat inside his helmet, muttered through the comms, "Good, no more waiting for alien approvals. We build what we want now." Another chuckled. "And faster, too." The quiet meetings in underground chambers on Earth, leaders met in secret. Generals, scientists, and representatives from every continent gathered around glowing tables. Maps of the solar system stretched across the walls, with blinking dots showing shipyards, colonies, and resource stations. The oldest general leaned forward. "The Council thinks they have cut us off. In truth, they have cut themselves off from us. A scientist adjusted her glasses. We no longer need their permissions. We can mine deeper, build faster, and test weapons they would never allow. Another leader, a woman from the African Union, tapped her finger on the map. But we must move quickly. The Council watches us. If they think we are rising too fast, they may send fleets to enforce their exile with fire. The general smiled thinly. Then let them come. They will learn what Earth can do. The room grew quiet. Everyone knew the truth. Humanity had always been restless under the Council's rules. Now freed from those chains, they would not waste a moment. Shipyards in motion in orbit above the moon. The Artemis yards, a sprawling network of docks, cranes, and platforms, shone like a second city in the sky. Once the Council had restricted what could be built there. Human engineers were forced to submit every design for approval, and most had been denied. But now those rules meant nothing. Blueprints that had sat hidden for decades were pulled out of vaults. New ships were designed overnight. Gigantic colony arcs capable of carrying thousands of settlers began to take shape. Warships with sleek black hulls rolled off the docks, bristling with weapons the Council had once banned. Inside one command center, an engineer stood before a massive viewport. Below he could see an unfinished arc, its frame stretching almost a kilometer long. The ship's engines glowed faintly as they were tested. A young technician joined him, eyes wide. They said it would take 20 years to build one of those, she whispered. The engineer smiled faintly. That was under Council law. Without their chains, we'll have 5 ready in 3 years. The colonies stir beyond Earth. The colonies in the solar system moved with the same urgency. On Mars, factories doubled their production. On Titan, humans expanded domes into new territory, preparing for massive population growth. In the asteroid belt, miners worked around the clock, hauling precious metals and ice back to waiting cargo ships. In every colony, the same words were whispered, "We are free." On Ceres, a group of miners gathered in a mess hall, their hands dirty from ore dust. One slammed his cup on the table. All my life, the Council told us where to dig, how much to dig, and when to stop. No more, now we dig until we choose. Another miner raised her glass. To Exile. The others laughed and drank, their voices echoing through the small hall. The great departure plan in secret. Humanity created something even larger than ships or colonies. They called it Project Horizon. Project Horizon was not a single plan, but 1,000 smaller ones tied together. It meant spreading beyond the solar system, beyond the reach of the Council's patrols. It meant sending fleets into the unknown, where no alien eyes could follow. Massive star maps were unrolled, showing the spiral arms of the galaxy. Red circles marked Council-controlled sectors. Blue dots showed unexplored regions. Green arrows pointed outward, paths for human fleets to take. A young strategist spoke before the gathered leaders. The Council believes we will stay near Earth, trapped in this cage. They are wrong. We will not wait for them to tell us where we can go. We will leave on our own terms, an older admiral asked. And if they try to stop us? The strategist's eyes glinted. Then they will learn exile was their greatest mistake. The watching eyes, not all aliens, ignored humanity. Some still sent spies hidden in cloaked ships that lingered at the edge of human space. They watched as massive fleets of transports disappeared into the dark. They recorded strange bursts of energy as new weapons were tested. They sent reports back to the Council. One spy, a feathered alien with 4 eyes, stared in shock at the view before him. Through his scope, he saw humans launching 3 gigantic arcs at once, their engines roaring brighter than stars. Impossible, he whispered. They were supposed to fall into despair, not rise. His captain frowned. Send the report. The Council must know. But when the report reached the Council chamber weeks later, most delegates dismissed it. Exaggerations, they said. The humans cannot move so fast. They are bluffing. Only a few grew uneasy, remembering the silence of the human delegates during their judgment. Silence that had not been defeat but something else. Humanity moves. The first wave of colony arcs left the solar system in silence. They carried families, scientists, soldiers, and workers. Each arc was escorted by sleek warships that moved like shadows. Their engines left bright trails behind them as they vanished into the void. On Earth, people gathered in parks and rooftops to watch the streaks of light rise into the sky. Children pointed upward, shouting, "They're leaving!" "Look," an old woman smiled as she watched the arcs disappear. "Good," she whispered. "Let them go. Let them build a future where no one can chain them again. In the command centers, data screens lit up as fleet after fleet departed. Each time, commanders marked them with a single word: departed. The Council reacts. When the Council finally understood the truth, it was already too late. Reports poured in from border patrols. Human ships had been seen beyond known trade routes. Colonies were sprouting in sectors no one had dared to settle. Strange new technologies were being spotted. Weapons, engines, and shields that no alien recognized. The Chancellor called an emergency meeting. "This cannot be ignored," the Chancellor said, silver fingers tightening. Humanity was supposed to shrink, not grow. Exile was meant to contain them, not unleash them. A crystalline delegate clicked nervously. "Perhaps we should reconsider. Bring them back before they grow too strong." But another alien slammed a claw against the railing. "No, they must remain exiled. If they wish to burn themselves in the dark, let them." The Council argued for hours, but no answer came. By the time the meeting ended, humanity had already left in waves, too far to be recalled. A new beginning back on Earth. Leaders stood before their people. One of the original delegates who had faced the Council spoke, her voice broadcast to every corner of the planet and every colony in the solar system. "They thought exile would end us. They believed we would crawl back into silence. But today, you see the truth. Exile is not our cage. It is our freedom. We are no longer bound by their chains. We will go farther than they ever dreamed. We will not wait to be told twice." Cheers rose from Earth and echoed across the colonies. The departure was not sorrow. It was celebration. Humanity was no longer asking for a seat at the Council's table. Humanity was building its own table, far beyond the reach of the Council's hand. And in the dark of space, the first human fleets carried not despair, but hope, ambition, and the fire that had always defined them. The first human fleets had already vanished into the stars. What began as a quiet departure soon grew into something much greater. Humanity was no longer a single world bound by Earth, nor a small chain of colonies around the solar system. Now they were explorers, builders, and settlers across the galaxy. The Council believed humans would struggle, that exile would cripple them. Instead, exile gave them freedom. And with freedom, humanity grew like wildfire. The harsh world's most alien species avoided difficult planets. If a world was too hot, too cold, or too unstable, they ignored it. But humans saw these places differently. On a planet where storms never ended, humans built floating cities above the clouds. On a world with crushing gravity, they built machines to strengthen their bodies and walked proudly where no other species dared to stand. On an ice moon where the surface was locked in eternal winter, humans dug deep tunnels and made homes underground. One settlement leader, standing before a crowd of new colonists, said with pride, "Others saw these worlds as impossible. We see them as challenges, and challenges are what make us stronger." The colonists cheered, their voices echoing across the frozen caverns. Adapting faster aliens were slow to adapt. It often took them centuries to adjust to new conditions. But humans were different. They learned quickly, changed quickly, and never gave up. In one colony, a disease unique to the planet spread among the settlers. Instead of abandoning the colony, scientists worked day and night creating medicine within months. In another settlement, strange predators attacked the walls at night. Instead of retreating, humans studied the creatures, learned their patterns, and built defenses that not only kept them safe, but also allowed them to tame some of the beasts. Within years, stories spread through the stars of humans living in places no alien could survive. "They do not adapt like us," one alien whispered in disbelief. "They adapt faster." New technologies, with the Council's restrictions gone, human scientists advanced at a speed that shocked even themselves. Engines grew stronger, shields tougher, and weapons sharper. Entire designs once locked away by Council law became reality. On one research station orbiting a dead star, engineers tested a new type of drive. When activated, the ship vanished from sight and reappeared across the system in seconds. The test crew cheered, knowing this invention would change everything. On another world, scientists developed farming domes that could grow food in deserts, swamps, and even underwater. Colonies that might have starved instead thrived, sending supplies to others. One scientist spoke during a broadcast to many colonies. "The Council thought to slow our progress, but by exiling us they have opened every door. We will not stop now. Whispers in the galaxy news of human growth spread, first as rumors, then as undeniable reports. Traders whispered of human ships appearing in distant systems, carrying strange goods and offering fair deals. Explorers spoke of human settlements where no alien had dared to go. Some races grew uneasy. They were supposed to fade, an insectoid captain muttered to her crew. Why do they rise instead? Others grew curious. Oppressed species long bound by the Council's laws quietly reached out to humans. A merchant from a minor world, forbidden to expand by Council decree, traded secretly with a human colony. He returned with new tools and seeds that transformed his people's farms. He whispered to his family, the humans share what the Council never allowed. Perhaps their exile is our chance too. The first independent networks at first, human colonies were scattered and isolated. But soon they built their own networks. Communication relays stretched between systems. Supply routes linked colonies together. Human-built gates, smaller and rougher than the Council's massive ones, but still effective, began to appear. What began as scattered settlements grew into clusters of systems tied together by human technology. Within a generation, these clusters formed the roots of a new alliance. In one council meeting on a distant colony, leaders gathered. We must no longer think of ourselves as separate colonies, one governor declared. We are one people, one network, one force. The galaxy exiled us together, so together we rise. The message spread quickly. Humans were no longer just exiles. They were builders of something new. The Council's fear when the Galactic Council finally took notice, their fear was clear. Reports came in showing entire sectors filled with human settlements. Patrol ships sent to monitor the humans were sometimes destroyed, sometimes forced to retreat. In the Great Chamber, delegates argued loudly. A crystalline being flashed in alarm. They are growing too fast. They settle worlds that are impossible. Their technology leaps ahead at unnatural speed, a scaled delegate hissed. We should have crushed them before. Now they are beyond control. But another voice, softer, spoke from the shadows. It belonged to a small species often ignored in the chamber. Perhaps exile was not punishment. Perhaps it was freedom. And perhaps we made a mistake. The Chancellor silenced the room. We will monitor them. Nothing more. If they overreach, they will collapse. But deep down, many feared that collapse would not come. The beacon of freedom among the oppressed species, humanity's rise was like a spark in darkness. Aliens who had long lived under the Council's strict rules began to dream of joining the humans. Secret envoys traveled to human colonies asking for help. In one hidden meeting, a group of small reptilian traders spoke with a human commander. Their voices shook with desperation. The Council forbids us to expand. They control our food, our ships, our trade. But you build freely. Will you share with us? The human commander nodded. Yes, we know what it means to be bound. Stand with us and you will never be bound again. The reptiles bowed their heads in gratitude. For the first time, they saw a path to freedom. The first human victory. The galaxy truly began to change when the first clash came. A Council patrol attempted to block a human fleet from entering a sector. The patrol commander, certain that humans would back down, hailed them. You are forbidden to travel here. Turn back. The human captain's reply was calm. We are not forbidden from anywhere. We go where we choose. The patrol opened fire. The battle was short but fierce. Human ships moved with precision, striking fast and hard. Within minutes, the Council patrol was forced to flee, damaged and humiliated. Word of the battle spread across the stars. Aliens whispered in awe. The humans do not run. They fight, and they win. A new kind of power unlike the Council, humanity's power was not built on fear or control. It was built on determination, adaptation, and the willingness to face any challenge. In their colonies, they did not demand obedience through law, but through shared purpose. People worked together because they believed in the future they were building. Aliens who joined them were treated as equals, not as subjects. One alien merchant who had once bowed before the Council now stood proudly in a human colony. Here, he told his children, we are not told what we cannot do. Here we are free. The galaxy watches. By the end of a single generation, the galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer a small world exiled from the stars. They were an expanding force spreading faster than any could imagine. Their colonies lit up the star maps like new constellations. Their fleets traveled farther than the Council thought possible. The Council had voted to exile Earth, but exile had not weakened humanity. It had unleashed them. And as whispers spread, a single truth became clear across the galaxy. Humanity had turned exile into expansion, and nothing could stop them now. The galaxy had watched in silence as humanity spread like fire across forgotten corners of space. At first, the Council told themselves it was temporary. They will overreach, some said. They will collapse under their own ambition, others claimed. But as years passed, the humans did not collapse. Instead, they thrived. Their colonies grew stronger. Their fleets grew larger. Their technology advanced faster than anyone expected. The Council's patience began to run out. Something had to be done. And so the first clash came. Council patrol. The Council maintained patrol fleets along the borders of their core territories. These ships were meant to enforce law, intimidate smugglers, and remind smaller species of the Council's authority. One such patrol was dispatched to a sector humans had recently begun to explore. The fleet consisted of 12 ships, sleek silver vessels armed with heavy weapons. Their commander, a tall crystalline being named Rovar, believed the mission would be simple. The humans are reckless, Rovar told his crew as their fleet entered the system. They believe exile gives them freedom, but we will remind them of the Council's authority. A sharp warning will be enough. The crew nodded, confident. They had fought pirates, smugglers, even rebellious colonies before. They had never faced humans in open battle. Human fleet on the other side of the system, a human fleet of 7 ships was escorting a colony ark. The ark was massive, carrying thousands of settlers, supplies, and machines. Its hull glowed with the heat of engines pushing it toward a new star. The escorting warships were smaller in number than the Council fleet, but each was fast, armed, and crewed by determined men and women. Their captain, Elena Marik, stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, her eyes calm as she studied the incoming readings. Council ships, her second officer reported. 12 of them. They're moving to intercept. Elena's jaw tightened. She knew this moment would come someday. Signal the Ark. Tell them to continue on course. We will handle this. The confrontation, the Council fleet closed in, weapons charged but not yet firing. Commander Rovar opened a channel. His voice echoed with sharp tones translated for human ears. Humans, you are forbidden to enter this sector. By order of the Galactic Council, turn back immediately or face destruction. On the Resolute, Elena folded her arms and listened. When Rovar finished, she gave her reply, her voice steady. We are not forbidden from anywhere. Exile freed us from your orders. We go where we choose. The Ark continues forward. Rovar's crystalline body pulsed with light. Defiance will bring you nothing but ruin. Turn back. Elena shook her head. No. You may fire if you wish, but we will not retreat. The channel closed. The first shot. For a moment, there was silence between the fleets, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Then Rovar gave the order. Fire. Brilliant lances of energy shot from the Council ship, streaking across the dark. They struck against the shields of the Resolute, making the ship tremble but not break. Human crews moved quickly, responding with calm precision. Return fire, Elena ordered. Human weapons lit up the void. Rail cannons roared, missiles streaked, and beams of concentrated plasma tore into the silver hulls of the Council ships. The first Council vessel shuddered, armor cracked, and flames burst from its side. The battle had begun. Battle in the void. The Council ships had more numbers, but the humans had something else, adaptability. They moved with speed and creativity, weaving through enemy fire, striking in unexpected ways. On the Resolute, officers shouted orders. Target their engines. Redirect power to forward shields. Launch drones. The drones swarmed like a cloud of sparks, confusing Council targeting systems. Missiles slipped through gaps in enemy defenses, exploding against their hulls. A Council ship spun out of formation, crippled. Another tried to cover it, only to be struck from 2 sides by coordinated human fire. Commander Rovar's light pulsed in frustration. How they are fewer. They are weaker! How do they fight like this? His crew had no answer. Humanity's determination, on every human ship the same spirit burned. Crews worked without fear, their hands steady, their eyes focused. They knew exile had given them no choice but to fight for themselves. There would be no rescue, no mercy. One young gunner whispered to himself as he fired, We don't run anymore. Not from them. Not from anyone. Another engineer sealing a breach in the hull gritted his teeth. This is our chance. If we hold, the galaxy will know we cannot be pushed back. Elena stood tall on her bridge, watching as her fleet struck again and again. She thought of the Ark moving steadily in the distance, carrying thousands of lives toward a new world. That was why they fought. Not for conquest, not for pride, but for survival and freedom. Turning the tide, the Council fleet tried to regroup. Rovar barked new orders, forming his ships into a defensive wall. But the humans did not give them time. Focus fire on their flagship, Elena commanded. The Resolute and two others unleashed a storm of weapons. Explosions tore across the Council commander's vessel. Rover's crystal body flickered wildly as alarms filled his bridge. Impossible, he whispered. They should not. They cannot. But they could, his ship's core overloaded. In a burst of light, the Council flagship shattered, fragments scattering into the void. The remaining Council ships wavered, their formation broken. Press the attack, Elena ordered. Within minutes, 3 more Council ships were crippled. The rest fled, engines burning hot as they escaped into hyperspace. The humans had won. Aftermath silence returned to the battlefield. Wreckage drifted slowly, glowing faintly from fires that could not burn in the void. The human fleet regrouped, their shields cracked, their hulls scarred, but their spirits unbroken. Elena exhaled slowly. Status of the Ark? Safe, Captain. Continuing on course, a smile touched her lips. Good, that is all that matters. The crew cheered, their voices filling the bridge. They had faced the Council's might for the first time, and prevailed. The message spreads news of the battle traveled faster than the ships themselves. Traders, spies, and travelers carried the story across the galaxy. In markets and taverns, whispers spread. The humans fought the Council patrol, and won. 7 ships against 12, and the humans drove them away. They are not weak. They are stronger than ever. For oppressed races, the story was like fire in the dark. If the humans can fight them, one alien whispered, then perhaps so can we. For the Council, the story was shame. Delegates shouted in anger during their meetings. They are dangerous. They must be stopped. They are spreading rebellion. But no matter how loudly they argued, the truth remained. The humans had faced the Council in open battle and survived. Elena's reflection. That night, aboard the Resolute, Captain Elena stood alone in her quarters, staring at the stars through the viewport. Her ship was damaged, her crew exhausted, but her heart was steady. She whispered to herself, "They thought exile would break us. But now they see, we will not bow. We will not retreat." She closed her eyes, hearing the distant hum of the engines carrying her ship forward into the unknown. Humanity's path was set. The first clash was only the beginning. The galaxy changes in the years that followed. That single battle became a legend. Songs were written about it. Stories were told in marketplaces. Even children in distant colonies played games pretending to be human captains facing impossible odds. The Council's authority cracked that day. It had been built on fear, on the belief that no one could stand against them. But humanity had stood, and more than that, they had won. The galaxy would never forget the first clash, and humanity, once exiled, now walked boldly into their destiny. The galaxy had changed. Humanity's first clash with the Council had proven more than just their strength. It had proven their will. Once exiled, now unstoppable, humans were no longer bound by the rules of others. Across the stars, colonies thrived, fleets expanded, and whispers of a new order reached even the oldest Council members. But the humans did not seek vengeance. They sought freedom, growth, and the opportunity to build a future unbound. The rising alliance with each new settlement, humanity reached out to other races, especially those oppressed or restricted by the Council. Small species, long silenced and limited, found a voice among the humans. They sent envoys, traders, and scouts to the growing human network, asking to join. In the orbit of a gas giant, a council of species met for the first time on neutral territory. Humans represented themselves with calm authority, not dominance. Captain Elena Merrick, now an admiral, addressed the gathered leaders. "You are not joining us to serve. You are joining because together we are stronger. Together we are free. Together we can shape the galaxy without fear of being told what we may or may not do." The delegates, a mixture of reptilian traders, insectoid diplomats, and crystalline scholars, nodded in agreement. For the first time they felt a sense of hope, a chance to thrive without the Council's oppression. Expanding the border's human fleets, once modest, now moved with coordination and precision across entire star systems. Colony arcs carried not only humans but allied species, establishing settlements on worlds others had abandoned. On the planet Virel, with thick skies and toxic air, humans built enclosed cities powered by clean fusion. Alien allies learned quickly, using human technology to adapt to harsh conditions. Scientists experimented with crops and energy sources, sharing knowledge freely among species. Meanwhile, trade routes connected colonies with efficiency never seen under the Council. Supplies, goods, and information moved faster and safer than ever. Human engineers even developed smaller, more reliable jump gates to link distant sectors. Every colony understood one thing. They were no longer waiting for permission. They were masters of their own destiny. Council panic. When reports of the new alliance reached the Council, panic spread. Delegates argued and blamed one another. Some suggested sending fleets to crush humanity once and for all. Others whispered in fear. They are no longer isolated. They are growing too fast. Their fleets are faster. Their colonies stronger. And they have allies we cannot control. The Chancellor, silver fingers tapping in frustration, called an emergency vote. Humanity must be stopped, he declared. We cannot allow them to challenge the Council's authority. Yet many delegates were already too afraid. The exiled humans were no longer just a single species. They represented freedom, innovation, and unity. Any attack might ignite more rebellion. A diplomatic move instead of responding with aggression, humanity chose a different path. Envoys traveled to the Council, not to beg or plead, but to speak truthfully. They carried no weapons into the chambers, only words. Admiral Elena Marique addressed the Council. We were exiled. You believed that would weaken us. It did not. It freed us. We now exist not as your subjects, but as equals. We do not seek war. We seek a galaxy where every species can grow, explore, and thrive without fear of judgment or control. The Council listened, shocked by her calm and confidence. They had expected demands, threats, or aggression. Instead, they heard honesty, courage, and wisdom. Building a new order back in human space, plans were already underway for a new type of governance, one built on cooperation, innovation, and fairness. Colonies elected representatives to coordinate trade, defense, and exploration. Every species had a voice. Every opinion mattered. In the first meeting of the Human Allied Council, delegates discussed expansion into unclaimed systems. We cannot force others, a reptilian delegate said. We must show the benefit of joining, not coerce it. Exactly, Elena replied. Our power is in unity, not fear. Those who wish to join may join. Those who do not will not be forced. Freedom must always remain the foundation of our order. For the first time, the galaxy saw a civilization that grew through cooperation and courage, not dominance. The first crisis, and as the new order grew, challenges appeared. A rogue faction of alien raiders attacked a human colony near the edge of settled space. They expected easy plunder, assuming humans would flee or surrender. Instead, the humans fought with strategy and bravery. Allied species joined the defense using human technology to counter the raiders. Within hours, the attackers were repelled, their ships either destroyed or fleeing. The settlers worked together to repair damage and rescue the injured. Humanity's leadership ensured that no colony would stand alone. Each defense strengthened trust among allies and proved that the new order was more than words. It was action. The spread of knowledge, humanity's expansion, brought more than colonies and fleets. It brought knowledge, science, and culture to worlds that had been stagnant under the Council. Universities were established on moons and planets, open to all species. Technology was shared freely. Scientists collaborated on engines, energy sources, medicine, and agriculture. On the ice world of Thalor, an alien species learned to grow crops underground using human-designed hydroponics. On a desert planet, fusion-powered water systems allowed colonies to flourish. On a moon orbiting a red star, humans and allies together built laboratories to study stars and black holes. Knowledge spread faster than any Council-controlled system had ever allowed. And with knowledge came respect and trust. The Council attempts diplomacy, Seeing humans and their allies flourish, the Council finally realized that military action would be disastrous. A delegation was sent to negotiate. "Humans," the Chancellor said, "your power grows faster than we anticipated. We come to discuss terms and restore order." Elena Merrick listened carefully. "We do not seek to dominate you, but we will not allow the Council to dictate the lives of free peoples. If you wish to coexist, you must respect our colonies, our allies, and our independence." The Council had no choice but to accept. For the first time, humans and the Council existed as equals, not subjects, not masters, but co-inhabitants of a vast galaxy. Celebrations across the stars in human colonies, celebrations echoed through orbital cities and planetary settlements. Music, laughter, and fireworks marked the occasion. Humans and alien allies shared food, stories, and songs. A small child standing on a balcony overlooking the glowing city asked her mother, "Will the Council ever tell us what to do again?" The mother smiled, pulling her daughter close. "No, now we decide for ourselves." And the galaxy listens. For the first time in history, the exiled species had become a beacon. Humanity was no longer at the mercy of others. They had created a galaxy where cooperation, courage, and freedom were the guiding stars. A vision for the future admiral. Elena Merrick walked through a council chamber, now filled with humans and allies from countless species. Maps of galaxies, star clusters, and potential worlds stretched across the walls. Plans for colonies, exploration, and research were discussed openly, every voice valued. She paused to watch a young alien delegate demonstrate a new engine design. "This," she said quietly, "is why we fight, why we leave, why we build. Not to conquer, but to create. Not to rule, but to inspire." The council hall erupted with applause. Here, in this moment, humanity's vision was clear. A galaxy where every species had the chance to grow, explore, and thrive without fear. The legacy of exile, it had taken years, battles and daring leaps into the unknown. The council had thought exile would destroy humanity. They had misjudged completely. Exile had not broken humanity. It had strengthened them, teaching lessons of resilience, courage, and unity. The humans had not waited for permission. They had acted. They had built. They had inspired. In the distant stars, children played games pretending to captain starships. Scientists dreamed of inventions beyond imagination. Colonies grew stronger and more independent every day. And humanity's story spread, a tale of courage and perseverance that inspired not only humans but countless other species across the galaxy. The New Order. The galaxy had a new balance. Humanity, once exiled, was now a central force of progress and freedom. The Council still existed, but its authority was no longer unquestioned. Aliens and humans alike understood that power did not come from fear, rules, or control. It came from determination, cooperation, and the courage to build a better future. From the ice worlds of the Outer Rim to the bustling orbital cities near Earth, the message was clear. Exile cannot stop those who are determined. Freedom cannot be denied to those who are willing to fight for it. Humanity will chart its own path and the galaxy will follow. And so a new era began. A galaxy where humanity, once judged unfit and cast out, led by example. A galaxy where hope, courage, and unity were the true measures of strength. Humanity did not wait to be told twice. They had taken exile and turned it into destiny.